We recently traveled through the Brandywine Valley of Pennsylvania en route to give a talk on the landscape restoration we're doing at Flock for the Perennial Plant Conference and to film the outstanding Chrysanthemum exhibit at Longwood Gardens, which we'll share with you shortly. While in the area, we stayed at the charming historic inn at White Wing Farm, which we had discovered earlier this year when filming at Longwood Gardens. And this time, we even had a few solid hours to visit some shops in the historic town of Kennett Square, which also happens to be the mushroom capital of the United States. So it's a must-see for fungivores and fungophiles alike. Now, it's been 8 months since we've been to Longwood Gardens, but they are constantly changing up their exhibits in their conservatory. So we thought we'd see their Chrysanthemum Festival, which is unlike any other exhibit in the country. Over 9,000 pots of specially bred mums are planned for the entire season and trained, shaped, bent, bonsaied, and disbudded to create spectacular displays that blend ancient Asian art forms with more modern techniques. Over 250 cultivars across the 13 classes of mums are represented in the displays, and the highly prized 1,000-bloom chrysanthemum, which I think should be considered one of the horticultural wonders of the world, is a technique in Japan known as ozukuri. It truly represents the pinnacle of horticultural achievements, which we'll find out more about shortly in this episode. So we are back at Longwood. It's pretty amazing we were here, but as with everything, your exhibits change all the time.
They do.
Yeah, so tell me who you are and what we're about to see today.
So I'm Jason Simpson. I'm a specialty greenhouse grower at Longwood, and a big part of my job is growing chrysanthemums for the fall.
And now, chrysanthemums for the fall, though, is this something that you're actually growing like a couple months in advance? Is it like a full year thing?
It depends on which one you're talking about.
Okay.
I grow a lot of the big 3D forms like these, and those forms take between 10 and 12 months to grow.
So that's like a full-time job, starting really early.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
So we have a designer at Longwood that we meet with a year ahead of time. We met with him last July to plan for this Chrysanthemum Festival. And he comes to the meeting with which cultivars or colors he would like on different forms. And we do a little back and forth where if I think a certain cultivar will work better on some form, we can work together. And then I start from vegetative cuttings in middle of October or early November for the following year.
Okay. Now, I have a couple questions that are immediately coming to me. Like,
yeah.
One, I'd love to know the origins of this, like chrysanthemums in 3D form. And are these the chrysanthemums that we actually see like as annuals or something that we pick up during this time of year, or are these kind of special chrysanthemums?
These are special.
Okay.
They're a little different from the garden mums you would buy at a garden center because these aren't hardy here.
Yeah.
The chrysanthemums native to Asia, and a lot of the techniques we use come from Japan.
Okay,
so
I see.
They've been growing these for hundreds of years over there, and Longwood has taken those techniques and we've changed it into different forms we'd like to see on display. This one is a very traditional form that you see at every Chrysanthemum Festival in Japan.
And it's meant to be like a fan kind of thing?
Like a handheld fan.
Right.
So I have 4 plants planted in this container, 3 to create the field of purple, and then 1 plant for the white circle in the center.
And these look like little trees, essentially.
Yeah.
So you're taking that stem and are you like taking branches off of it? How does that work?
With a chrysanthemum, everywhere it puts out a new leaf, it sends out a new side shoot. So it depends on, a lot of my job is just sending the plant's energy where I need it to go.
Okay.
So with this one, as the lower branches form, I take off all those little side shoots until we get to the edge of the fan shape. And then at that point, I leave the side shoots on it. It's more spreading them out to cover the surface area.
Got it.
The cascades, everything in their final container in mid-January or February. In the greenhouse, they're all crammed together in one space, so I don't have a lot of room for all this structure. My goal in the winter is to get the length I need, so it reaches the top of the fan or the bottom of the basket legs that we'll see in a minute.
Right.
I can slow them down or speed them up based on temperature. I can run a positive diff, so plants grow faster when the day is warmer than the nighttime.
Okay.
You get that naturally.
Yeah.
But we know that plants are most responsive the first 2 hours of daylight. So if I warm the temperature in the greenhouse 10 degrees for the first 2 hours of the morning, I can make the cells stretch faster and get to the tip top of the forms I need.
My God, this is like a science.
And then when the danger of frost is gone, I can move some things outside and I have much more space to get them on their forms. And my goal for the summer is to fill the surface area of whichever piece we're looking at.
So you're working with these designers, talking about like what cultivar is going to fit for this type of topiary or this type of 3D model. And then you literally are timing out to like this Chrysanthemum Festival, which does it open today or is it opened? It's been opened?
It started October 1st.
Okay.
Last year we lengthened the time of our Mum Festival. So mums flower in the fall naturally when the days get shorter, but our Mum Festival starts early enough that they wouldn't naturally be in flower yet.
Yeah.
I can pull black cloth in the greenhouse. We know, based on trials we've done at Longwood, how many weeks it takes each cultivar from the start of black cloth until we have open flowers. So our early set, I started black cloth the middle of July. The cloth comes down at 4:30 in the afternoon and stays shut till 8:30 the next morning, and that's enough hours of darkness to start the initiation of flowers.
For instance, does this one last the full time of the show, or do you have to actually switch this out with another one?
Last year was the first time we did this, and we worried that the early set wouldn't last all the way through. With our 3D pieces, they did. We had a cool enough fall, the weather was perfect, and they lasted all the way through.
Right, because you can't really monitor this area as much as
not as closely.
Yeah.
So I have two sets. I grow an early set, and I grow a late set that's being installed this week. If the early set still looks nice, they'll just put the second succession in next to it.
Got it.
And a lot of these in the beds do run their course about halfway through, so they will be swapping out a lot of these in the beds as we go along.
How long has chrysanthemum breeding been going on? Because there's quite a range now. I'm starting to learn it's not like your regular mum that you would see at your garden center.
Right. They've been doing breeding in Japan for hundreds of years. We started Mum Festival at Longwood in the 60s, so we've been working with them that long. We have a curtain we produce every year. If you look behind, it's a series of 6-inch pots that we grow in the greenhouse ahead of time, and there's a metal system. The pots sit in these troughs.
Oh, wow.
And each pot has drip irrigation in it to get a drink every day.
Wow. So every year you use that curtain, but you design something new.
Yep, the plant palette would change every year.
It's crazy. Is that the New Zealand sedge? Looks like a...
Carex, toffee twist.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Plays really nicely with the orange to the nose. So one of the big forms I've grown a couple of times are these teardrops over the fern floor.
Yeah.
I have pieces that we grow every year. I always have hanging baskets, we always have the spirals, and then the designer may come to the meeting with a new idea. A couple of years ago, he wanted our hanging baskets in a different shape. So we have a metal fabrication shop on property. I work with one of our metal fabricators.
That's pretty
When
fantastic.
the designer comes with a new idea, Dave in our shop will look at it structurally and say, yes, I think we can make a form that will fit the designer's vision. And then I look at it horticulturally and think, okay, can I make a chrysanthemum do that?
Yeah.
So we took our hanging basket frames and bent them to a different shape. In the greenhouse over the winter, it's an 18-inch hanging basket, and the root ball is up high. Plants grow faster upwards than they would if I was trying to force them down the frame.
Huh.
So in the winter, I have them growing up bamboo stakes. And like we talked about, I want to get my final height. In the middle of March, I would have a 6-foot tall plant. And then I need to transfer it to this frame where they're growing down toward the ground. Mm-hmm. So with a chrysanthemum, you can twist the stem, and at a certain point you feel it give way, or you might even hear a crack. That's breaking the xylem and phloem inside the stem, the tubes that take the fertilizer and water up and down the stem. Mm-hmm. With a mum, if you stop twisting before you break the outside of the stem, it'll recover from that. So I'll twist and break the stem 2 or 3 spots right at the base, and then it seems silly, but if we grab hold of it for 10 or 12 seconds and warm it up with our hands, that makes it a little more flexible. And if you're real careful, you can just twist and turn, and I can bend that whole 6-foot plant down.
Wow.
And it gets tied to the metal structure underneath.
I mean, such finesse with it. How did you learn these skills? Did you come to Longwood to learn them? Did you have to go to Japan and like learn from some master, or?
I didn't know you could do all these things before I came to Longwood. So when I started at Longwood, I was growing the plants that get planted in the beds.
Yeah.
I was growing single stems and disc buds. I did that for 9 years and was lucky enough to learn from the growers that had done it before me.
And explain a disc bud.
If we go right over here. We grow our bedding mums in 3 different ways at Longwood. A spray, which is loaded with smaller flowers, and then we can do a disc bud, so these orange ones along the back edge. There's 5 plants per pot. They get 1 pinch early in the season, and you want 3 liters per plant. And like we talked about, every time there's a new side branch, you take off all the side branches.
Yeah.
And when they form flowers, there'll be a cluster of buds at the end of each stem. So we'll remove all but 1 bud, so more energy goes into the one to get a little bigger. So in a disc bud, there will be 15 flowers in each pot. And then we do single stems, just 1 plant per pot. And you take all those side branches off and all the side buds, and you get one great
bigger one.
Okay.
So continue back with your story. You said you didn't realize until you got to Longwood that you started to learn about this stuff, and you were disc budding and everything like that.
So this is my 10th season on the Cascades. When I moved into that position, there were the grower that did it before me and the grower that did it before him were still here. So as my first season went along, I was really lucky to have 2 people I could go to with questions.
That's great.
I never thought of, what do I do now? How do I tie or pinch this? Or
they just showed you.
Yeah, it was really great.
Fantastic. That's good that there's overlap.
We have taken trips to Japan to learn their methods, and I was lucky to take a trip in 2019. It was an 8-day trip, and we hit 8 different mum shows in Japan. It's really fantastic.
And I would imagine then they also are like maybe the center of breeding for mums as well, or do you think that like the United States has really taken over with like?
It's a big center for mums. It's still very culturally important there. It's the national flower, and there's chrysanthemum festivals all over the country. And different places around the world have taken that and changed it up a little.
Yeah.
The US, there's mum societies in the UK, I know. There's big mum shows in China and South Korea and Vietnam.
It probably really helps that we're within the kind of the same hemisphere. We have similar cold season patterns. Is this something that you would ever see down south, like in Florida? I would imagine they don't have.
There is I haven't visited, but there is a garden in Alabama right on the coast that does a big mum show.
Okay.
It would present different challenges than we have here, I would assume, with the humidity and the temperature that they deal with down there. With Japan, their climate does line up pretty well with ours.
Yeah.
So the timing of their mum shows lines up with ours. The year we were able to go, we installed our mums, and the next day got on a plane to go see theirs.
I mean, they look like fancy cakes, you know what I mean? And pastries. And I I mean, they look like hair. I mean, somebody with a big head of like Goldilocks hair.
And some of the single stems do get as big as your head. It's really impressive.
Unbelievable.
You have to be careful in the cultivars you choose. Some mums, if we used a small pom-pom, you take all that time and disbud all of the stems as it grows, and you would still get a very small
pom-pom.
So they've been bred to perform different ways. This form behind us, we don't normally display plants in this space. So in the greenhouse...
It's like I'm looking under the skirt of something.
I have these growing on a metal A-frame in the greenhouse.
Yeah.
Like what we were talking about with the baskets. The pot is up high, and I bend them down to this flat surface. This is the only form that comes to the conservatory without its structure. So 2 weeks before display, I come through and pull all of the wire off that we've used to tie it to the frame, and it lifts off the metal frame. There's a metal ring that clamps up high on the column, and the pot's up high, and the plant just hangs under its own support.
Yeah, and you can see like they're still in pots. But you just have that metal frame that you're like growing them down. And like, are you stitching them in, or, you know, do you have to weave them in any kind of way, or they just kind of look like that?
With a form like this, as all of the branches grow, they want to grow up toward the light. And this is one that we're trying to force downward. So I have a whole crew. I have 5 seasonals that we hire for the summer that work with me 40 hours a week.
Wow.
I have 7 volunteers that come in 1 day a week it's a lot of work. But every other week, the branches have grown up toward the light.
Yeah.
We'll pinch the growing tip out to force more side branches and tie everything down flat to the frame with these little green electrical wires.
Oh, wow.
So we'll just loop this wire over the top of the mum stem to hold it tight. And then with this form at the end of the season, we can just slide them right off.
And what kind of wire is that? Where can you get that?
I order it from an electrical supply company.
Okay.
It's electrical wire.
Do you know what gauge it is? What thickness?
I think it's 12.
Oh, damn, he's a horticulturalist, not an electrician.
We have found that you have to find a double wound wire so it's sturdy enough that will hold the stem down.
Yeah.
And green so that it blends in with
of course, It's so interesting that, like, with all the little horticultural ties that we have, that you go into an electrician's tool belt in order to be able to find the one that's right for
the
you.
tool I need.
Honestly, this is so cool. And when I'm looking at this and I looked under that, you almost have to do a fashion show where people come out wearing the chrysanthemums. I mean, I feel like that could be a next level if you haven't done that already.
In Japan, they make mum dolls.
Yeah.
So there are cultivars they can use. They grow them in the ground and then wash the soil off of the root system and place them in the kimonos and make different scenes out of dolls.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Such artistry, but it's not like, you know what I mean? I feel so conflicted about it. It's pretty neat actually seeing them all. I should say that we are here before Longwood opens up, so this is kind of what you see as they're switching things out. But anyway, I was gonna say, I feel a little conflicted about it because in many ways, like, plants are so beautiful in their own right. Like, you feel like, do you have to augment it? You know, it's almost like, oh, you're fine the way you are, you don't need to wear makeup.
Right.
But I get it, you look good in makeup too, you know, that type of thing. But this is like a different kind of artistry. You're taking the flower and you're manipulating it in a way that is really unique and interesting, but it's still beautiful. And it's you know what I'm saying?
That's
like I'm trying to get to.
I think it's pretty incredible the different things we can do with this one plant that it's been bred to do over time. We can bonsai it. We can do the crazy topiary forms that we've been talking about, or the garden mums that are hardy here in the winter. Yeah.
Now this looks like a set of fireworks here. These guys.
It does. Really great color.
Yeah.
So this is a spider mum with a little curlicue at the end. We're about halfway through our display. So what you see them doing now is just a refresh to get us through to the end of the mum display. And these forms, our grower Emily grows them. This is another very traditional piece that we saw at every mum show in Japan. We have our arborist crew, when they're doing storm cleanup outdoors. We'll keep an eye out for interesting branches that they're removing or trunks of trees.
Yeah.
And we grow the chrysanthemum up the back side of the tree trunk, so it looks like, it's a lot of like we were talking about on the fan shape, where she takes all the side branches off until it
looks like
reaches
it's cloud clipped in a way.
a metal paddle underneath here, and it looks like the flowers are growing right out of the tree trunk.
That's pretty crazy. This is a really nice color display as well. I like the peaches and the bright yellows. It feels very vibrant.
The orange of the peppers.
Yeah. Now this is a different type of mum in the back. It almost looks like a really like puffed out tansy. You know what I mean?
It is. So that's a pom-pom mum.
Okay.
They come in yellows and oranges, and we have 2 green cultivars that we use. That's one that wouldn't work as a single stem.
Yeah.
We could do all the labor of removing all the side branches, and you still get a tiny pom-pom on top.
How many like species of chrysanthemum are out there that you could kind of like work with and hybridize? Is it like a large group? I mean, it's from Asteraceae, so I'd imagine Asteraceae is a big family too. So
I've read that there are 20,000 cultivars of mums that exist.
Okay.
In our Longwood collection, we have 250 cultivars we work with.
Okay. These are funky too. They have like these little spoons at the end.
That is a spoon mum. That's one of the 13 classes. The tubular flower with a flat end.
Right, but the spoon mum you showed me the other time was a little bit more like frilly, you know.
The quill.
Yeah, quill, okay.
Yep.
And then these are like stuck their stems in a socket.
This is one of our green pom-poms.
It looks dyed.
It does, almost looks unnatural.
Yeah, so you've been doing this since well, not you personally, but the 60s.
Yes.
Longwood has been doing this since the 60s.
We had mums before the 60s, but that's when they really started to focus on a fall festival.
I got it. And then I may have missed, when did you say this actually officially ends? Like in November or?
November 12th.
Okay.
Sunday night, when we close to the public, we all come in the evening and all the mums go away, and we take 4 days to put Christmas in.
Okay.
It's a quick changeover for Christmas.
Yeah.
Where the install for mums might take a 2-week process. It's sort of a gradual changeover. When they come out, it's a real fast
Now,
process.
I understand that you're kind of affixing these to like kind of these metal forms. What do you reckon this weighs?
We have other hanging baskets we've weighed at 150 pounds, and I would think this is slightly more than that, maybe 175, 200 pounds.
So it's a proper human.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
a proper human could drop on you at any moment. Hopefully they're put up there very fun.
We do. We use a series of chains and cables with 2 separate hooks.
Yeah.
That when I went to order new ones, our metal shop told me you could hang a small truck from.
That's reassuring. It reminds me of like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and you're walking down and you're seeing these puffed pastries and candy cones and all this other kind of stuff, you know? It just has that element of it.
With my cascade forms, there's sort of 2 different methods of training the plants. There are some with the metal structures we were talking about, and I'll use chicken wire on flat surfaces to tie to. And then with a standard form, or with these ball and cone, there are some that I can just pinch and pinch and pinch to create as much side branches as I can to form a round shape. And this is sort of a combination between the 2. It's one single plant, and at the base, I leave 4 or 5 stems that I pinch every 2 or 3 weeks to force the branches to get the round shape at the base. And then when it reaches the spiral growing out of the sphere, that's more of the flat surface that I'm tying flat to a chicken wire form.
And this is all one plant?
This is one plant.
Unbelievable.
The hanging baskets, I've got 18 plants in the 18-inch basket frame.
Yeah.
So it depends on which form you're looking at, how many plants.
What's your favorite form and why? Like why would you like working with that form?
I like the spirals.
Okay.
It shows a little more detail, and they're sort of fun and whimsical. One other piece that I like are our ball and cone standards. Depending from year to year what the designer would like to see, we'll have round standard shapes or tree forms.
Yeah.
And then we have some where
So that
we place a cone on top.
Yeah. I mean, it looks it doesn't look traditional, but it looks traditional in a way. You know, it looks like a kind of a traditional, like
Yep.
topiary-esque
But
type
playful
of thing.
and
But
fun.
playful, yeah. I mean, I think because of the structure of the chrysanthemum, it automatically feels playful in a way. It's kind of that poppy, bright, cheery type of flower,
Right.
especially that you would see at the end of season. It's not maybe the only thing blooming, but it is one of those things that is such a profuse bloomer in so many different shades and
Fun
colors.
Yep.
Now, when I think about mums as well, I think about something that is a little bit more longer blooming as well as like a late season bloom. Is that true? Or I know you're refreshing them here because I feel like they do definitely have some kind of longevity to them compared to some other flowers.
They do. And we have, within the mums, there are early season cultivars and late season. When I talked about forcing them with the black cloth, I know with the cascades, I have some that are an 8-week response time. So it'll take 8 weeks from starting black cloth to get open flowers. And then we know here at Longwood that we can get maybe 2 months out of the bloom once they're on display.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
One of our other growers, John, grows a lot of ornamental peppers and salvias to go along with the mums.
Yep.
That plant palette would change from year to year based on the color scheme that we're looking for. And as we walk around, our designer has planned different color schemes on different walkways. So you might turn the corner and have a pink walkway.
I mean, look at them here too. Oh, unbelievable. Should we
all
go
lined
this
up
way
in
or
the
this
arms.
way?
We can peek in here.
Last time we were here, they had lilies in these containers.
So we've grown really tall single stems for these.
Yeah.
These would have been started from vegetated cuttings in June to get this size of stem.
How big have you ever gotten chrysanthemums? Is there like a world record of like how
I don't know if there's a
large the
record.
flower?
I know we've had, with some of our cultivars, we can get one 7 or 8 inches across.
So like a pumpkin, almost like a pumpkin
almost.
size, yeah.
I know we went to the national competition in Japan, and there were houses full of single stem mums. I must have been almost as big as your head.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. They're heavy feeders, so you have to fertilize them right and take the side stems off at the right time. And
Tell me about the fertilizer. Like, what's the fertilizer regime for something like that?
with my cascade forms, I feed a 20-10-20, a general fertilizer, but at a strengthened rate. So I do 250 or 300 parts per million nitrogen, and I feed them 5 days a week, and then we clear water on the weekend to flush some of the salts
Wow.
out of the soil.
5 days a week, wow.
So as they reach the end of the production cycle in August, I cut back on the nitrogen so that the nitrogen promotes more green growth, and they need less of that toward the end of the season. So I really cut back at the end. In Japan, and we saw the same thing at New York Botanic Garden a few years ago, they grow single stems that are super tall. And as I was touring through the production facility, I couldn't figure out what they were doing with them. In Japan, they'll have long beds of single stem mums that they grow very, very tall, and then they plant them horizontally and bury the lower portion of the stem.
Oh, okay.
So the stem will be placed under a mulch surface.
Yeah.
And then
They'll
they
come back up
curve it
again.
up, and they use a string line or a laser line and have them all the perfect height, so they can adjust how much of the stem they bury to have a perfect incline along their bed of plants.
Wow.
So our designer saw that on a trip to Japan and thought, oh, we can grow really tall single stems. We'll just display it so you can really see what you can achieve with some of our cultivars. So when at Longwood, as a greenhouse grower, they'll give me a range of height that they would like a single stem 24 to 28 inches and a disc bud 15 to 18 inches tall, and that's my goal. We can achieve different heights based on how early in the season you start the cuttings. So these would have been started 2 or 3 months earlier than the other plants you've seen in the beds.
Huh. Yeah, this is horticulture, but it's also, there's like an architectural feature to this. I mean, you're working with, I guess it's not really considered hardscaping, but with all the metal work that you're using and all this other kind of stuff, you are
The structure to the plant.
structure and sculpture.
And
It really touches upon many different trades, I guess is
what
I'm
I
saying.
really like about my job is that I get the science side of it, the fertilizer and the pest control and
The lighting, like
the artistic
gold-
side
yeah.
of creating the different forms.
Yeah, very unique. This is fascinating. Are there any others that you want to show us, or do you
I
think?
have one here.
Okay,
We grow
it's like a shield.
a shield shape.
Yeah.
These used to be displayed more horizontally.
Uh-huh.
In Japan, this is what their cascade forms look like. Ours that
Interesting.
hang on the columns, theirs are more shield shaped. And this year, with the length of it, we had trouble fitting it in the beds. It would stick out into the walkway. So the designer thought, let's display it more vertically, like you had a shield hanging on your wall.
Yeah.
But if I give it a little turn, you could see on this form more
Wow.
the structure and how
Yeah.
many stems we've tied to the chicken wire.
It's actually not that many stems, though. You know, I guess it doesn't feel that much because of the way that you bereft them of the side shoots, you know?
Right, so
Yeah.
I've used 4 plants in the container based on the surface area I knew I needed to cover.
I mean, look at all that electrical wire that you're using.
Right.
It's so painstaking. I have arthritis after
days.
this. Like you're just like twisting
Right.
and tying.
Midway through the season, when it's loaded full of stems, it may take 4 to 6 hours to tie every stem down.
Yeah.
And some days it can be real zen-like, lost in your thoughts.
You know, there's so many analogies that come to my mind, but I almost think of it as like a chef or a cake maker or something where you create this beautiful creation for this specific event, a wedding, a birthday, or
Right.
whatever. And it eventually unceremoniously gets eaten, you know, and
Yep.
it's just a temporary, ephemeral
Right.
moment in time.
Moment of perfection.
And here you are, you know, working 10 months out of the year, 10 to 12 months out of the year in some cases, to create this beautiful masterpiece that eventually is
get a
unceremoniously
month
going to,
or maybe 2 out of display. Yep.
at least it gets more life than a cake at the end
True.
of the day.
That's right.
And a lot more eyeballs get to see it too. This is, how many people do you reckon come through to see this?
We
I
get-
mean, thousands, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
get 2.5 million visitors a year. On a busy day, we may get 13 to 14,000 people.
Yeah. Well, this is phenomenal. I know you're going to hand us off to Emily, who does some of the specific architecture here with the mums. But this is phenomenal. Thank you so much for taking us through your artistry
come
and your
down.
work. All right, well, I am here with Emily. Tell me a little bit about yourself and when you got started in mum growing.
So I went to school, Kutztown University, for environmental biology. I did a few internships working in horticulture. I was really interested in that. And I ended up at Longwood, originally as a seasonal, just helping grow plants for display. When I went full-time, I started working under Amanda Galano, and she was our full-time 1,000 bloom grower. She grows a few other pieces for our Mum Festival.
Yeah.
And so April of this year, I took over that role and I helped grow this 1,000 bloom for display.
Oh my God. Well, I'd imagine actually starting in environmental biology, you probably didn't picture yourself maybe doing something like this.
Never, yes. It's so funny. I was saying to someone, I'm like, I don't know if I ever would have imagined this for myself.
No, it just kind of fell into like how you know, Longwood, you could say, okay, yeah, I get it. But then you start doing this kind of manipulation at the end of the day.
Yes.
And they needed somebody to fill that. But you didn't have this last year, right? Like this is kind of new again, I guess?
Yes, we didn't have it the previous 2 years. We've had some fungal issues. a little fusarium, some pythium. So we've been changing like our sanitation protocols, just trying to figure out exactly what was going wrong. And so this year we were able to do that.
And this is a big deal. So explain to me why. I mean, I could see that it's a big deal. It's like, how the heck do you even like grow this thing? Tell me what it takes to actually grow this and like form it on the structure.
Yeah, so it starts June of the previous year. So it takes about 18 months to grow it.
Wow.
We have a propagator who takes our cuttings. 2 different cultivars that we typically use. The yellow one is our Susono no Hikari, and then we have a white that is Susono no Suki. So she takes cuttings of both each year. We grow them from our little plugs. It's a lot of pinching and just kind of tying into place. In January, we try to bend the stems. We will crack them and push them into the shape. So take a couple stems each direction and some pointing up.
Yeah, Jason was talking about how you have to crack, but not crack too much. It's almost like a chiropractor of sorts.
Yes, you know? It's a fine line. You really just want to crack that inside without really stripping the stems.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really, you have to be gentle with it, but also it feels really aggressive. So yeah, January, it gets its first shape, and then we use fiberglass rods to start building our layers of dome around it.
Is this an example of a fiberglass rod, or what do you mean fiberglass rod?
Yeah, so you can actually see it. It's back there.
Oh, I see them, yeah.
Yes, okay. So there's 6 layers of this inside of the plant.
Yeah.
And as it grows, you just keep building larger and larger onto it.
So you're keeping the fiberglass shapes, basically. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
yeah. So that January really makes our first shape, and you just keep going off of that.
How many plants are in here, though? Is this just one plant?
One single plant.
It's unbelievable. It's crazy.
Yes. So yeah, we just keep pinching it and manipulating it and get it to its final form.
So you have, this is one plant, and this is called the 1,000 Bloom. Are there exactly 1,000 blooms, or is it like 1,000-esque?
We are at 1366 this year.
Wow. Now, do you feel this incredible weight of over the 18 months, like just, tending and babying, or how do you feel during this whole process of?
Yeah, it is. It was my child. My coworkers are making me a birth certificate for it. It's my first baby. So yeah, it's my main focus throughout the whole 18 months. I don't always baby it. Sometimes we are a little rough with it.
Yeah.
But it is my baby for sure.
Now, some of these are obviously like blooming now. Some of them are about to bloom. Is there any point in time where it's like the whole thing is perfectly in bloom, or that's a little bit too hard to manage, especially when it's out in this environment?
Yeah, that is a tricky one. We're always trying to get as close to perfectly open as we can. There will be a time where they're mostly all open. It'll be a really short window, but so we disbud in the fall, and that's when we take all of the side buds off and leave just one right on the tip, and that gives us this really big flower. Sometimes when you're disbudding, you want to try to aim and keep all of the same kind of sizes for the buds, but yeah, it's a challenge. And the top always loves to open first. It gets the most sun.
Yeah, yeah, that's hard to manage. But and one of the things I kind of imagine with like this is a massive size of like something that you would see, those little like punchy pots that you would get like normally at like your Home Depot or Lowe's or something. But oftentimes like the blooms touch one another, so it looks like just this yellow sphere. Is that kind of what you're aiming for here? Is it just becomes this like yellow sphere?
It is a bit, yeah. We try to space them enough that when all the flowers are open, they won't be touching each other.
I see.
But there are areas, you may see one, I'm not sure if I could catch one right now, but you'll notice some of them are a little closer in areas where we had some overlap when we were building our final frame. But yes, we try to perfectly space every single piece of this.
Well, I mean, this is just artistry like I haven't seen it before, and I can't imagine the amount of painstaking difficulty and basically craftsmanship that you have to do over the course of like a year and a half. You know, that's not lost on us. You know, you enjoy it for like a month or two, and it takes a year and a half to actually get it to where it is.
Yes. It's
amazing.
very labor intensive, but as you can see, it's worth it.
Worth it. If you enjoyed this video and videos like this, give it a thumbs up and help us grow our crew of botanophiles by subscribing to the channel. And if you're keen on seeing more of our online houseplant courses, then check out what we have in store over at homesteadbrooklyn.com. In the meantime, stay tuned for more episodes here on Plant One On Me. See you in the next episode.